Hello, my name is Patty, and I was born February 6th, 1968. Um, my parents was Jim Brain and Sharon Brain. My dad was a police officer, and my mother didn't work. And this is Pepper. This is my kitty Pepper. She's got to be in the video with me. So anyway, uh, I was not quite 2 years old when they got divorced. Um, we'll back up a minute. I was the youngest of three. There was Chris, Kathy, and then me. And so I wasn't quite two when they got divorced. And then Sharon went to go live with her parents and took us kids. And they were great. Grandpa and Grandma McMaster were great. And their house was clean and it was fun. And I remember living there. Grandpa had a pet squirrel he used to feed. And yeah, he fed it until the squirrel ate a hole through the roof of his porch. And then he didn't like the squirrel anymore. So anyway, Grandpa bought a house, a small little one-bedroom house, and built a partitioned off part of the living room so that it became a two-bedroom. Chris was the oldest. He's 4 years older than me. So he got the bedroom. Kathy got a bed, a rollaway. I don't know if you know what that is or not, but it's a small little bed. And Sharon and I shared a queen-size bed. I slept with her. So we were happy. I remember, Sharon was going to school. She was going to become a preschool teacher at Head Start. Everything was good. And then she met this guy named Smith, Larry Smith. And yeah, moved him in. And he slept with Sharon, who slept with me. So you can imagine what happened to the 4-year-old little girl, and her mother knew it. Didn't stop it. Anyway, time went on. I was in third grade. We moved to a house on 2nd Avenue, which was right across the street from the hospital in Newton. And it put us closer to Jim, my dad's parents, which was great because then we could go over and see them. And I would walk over there every weekend, every holiday, every chance I got, I was over there begging to spend the night. And Grandpa and Grandma Brain they were as bad as my biological parents were. My grandparents on both sides were total opposite. They were fantastic. I remember Grandma Brain would put me in the bathtub immediately, give me a bath, put clean clothes on me, and she would brush my hair. I had long, dark, curly hair. She would brush it and brush it and brush it, and read me books, and I'd crawl up in her lap. And one of the books was Ricka Dicka and Flicka, about this little girl in a yellow dress that met these triplets next door, and she couldn't play, and she finally got to wear overalls and went and played with them. And Chicken Little was one of my favorite books too. And Grandma would read those two over and over and over and over and over and again. And anyway, Grandpa was he was ornery. It was fine. We'd play Chinese checkers and he'd cheat, which was fine. It was fun. When I didn't grow up knowing Jim. Sharon was a very neglectful parent, and Jim was an alcoholic, and I really didn't know him. I knew who he was, but as far as a relationship, we didn't have a relationship with him. Sharon told me that they had the perfect family. They had, the boy and the girl, and then they screwed up and I came along, and that's why they ended up divorced. And she would always tell me that I was named after Jim's girlfriend at the time. It's like, whatever. Sharon and I never, I didn't like her. She'd hurt my feelings. And she never did anything to protect me. In fact, I remember one time in the fourth grade, Miss Britson was my fourth grade teacher. And we'd gone to Emerson Huff, which was the school I was going to for a conference. And we go in there and we sit down. And the first words out of Miss Britson's mouth was, "Is there a reason why Patty can't have close-up fit?" Yeah, that didn't go over well. And the first thing Sharon did when we walked outside of the school was slap me really hard across the face. And I was crying, and I said, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. Because I was getting heavy, and my clothes didn't fit. But Sharon she didn't keep a clean house, and we had bugs. God, I hated it. And if we needed dish or clothes, we'd have to wash them ourselves. And I was in grade school, and I knew that. And anyway, so economically, we were dirt poor. Smith worked. He worked at Maytag, and he got fired in '86. So this was before that. But he helped. But he was a nasty piece of work. And he's very abusive. And Sharon just, whatever he wanted to do was fine. So anyway, I can remember in the summertime, there'd be no food in the house. So I would walk over to my Aunt Shirley's house, and she'd give me a ham sandwich and a bottle of 7-Up. People used to think I was her daughter because I had, the dark hair and the blue eyes, and I didn't look much like Sharon, thank God. But anyway, so I was about 12, 7th grade. Kathy would be 2 years older than me, so she'd be in 9th grade. And that was when she started saying, Kathy and I were opposites. She was blonde, blue-eyed, very thin. And she would say, "I'm going to kill myself. If there's anything she wanted and she couldn't have it, I'm going to kill myself." And it was awful. And at first everybody was scared. And I remember her going to, there was a psych ward at the hospital, Hunter's Run is what it was called. And so she went over there, and she was diagnosed being bipolar. And I had no idea what that was. In fact, at the time I thought, "Oh, that's cool. I want that." And basically what it amounted to was she was mean. She was a lot like Sharon. A lot like Sharon. I can remember standing in the kitchen and having a disagreement, and Kathy threw a pair of scissors at me, and they landed right at my feet. And Sharon stood right there, and I was like, "Are you going to let her do that?" And Sharon's like, "Well, you need to leave her alone." Okay. When Kathy went to graduate in '84, Sharon made me do Kathy's finals for government and, what was the other one she had? History or some crap. And I had to do my sister's homework so that she could get her diploma. It's like, whatever. And Kathy was just mean. She was just really, really mean. I mean, we were all working, and she moved out of the house when she was 16. She moved in with Grandpa and Grandma Brain. And Chris had already moved out. Chris had lived with Grandpa and Grandma Brain, too. In fact, he was living there when Grandpa Brain died. And that was really hard. He died January of '84. And I remember Sharon wasn't home, and my best friend Nicole was, I used to call her Stoner. And so I walked up to this apartment where we used to go up there and drink all the time. And I just decided, hand me that joint. So we did. I got stoned first time in my life. And for 3 months afterwards, I was stoned every day. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to cope with the death. And it was devastating. It was just really, really hard. And so I met um, Mike. He turned out to be my boyfriend that year. And we went to prom together, and he made the comment to me. He said, you can't smoke pot. You can't do drugs. You can drink, but you can't do drugs. Okay. Wasn't that big deal. So I gave it up. And I worked at Adventureland from my sophomore to my junior year. And in order to make money at $2.50 an hour, you had to work 12-hour shifts. So you had to work open and close. And then you would get a lunch break, and you'd get you drink a glass of water and have a mashed potato and gravy for 26 cents. And then you'd actually get paid. You know, you stop and think. Oh, sorry, pepper's first going up my nose. At $2.50 an hour, if you work 10 hours, that's only $25. So you worked a lot of shifts and rarely had a day off. So anyway, when I came back to school, all the kids that were mean to me, you know, I remember they'd grab their locker, boys, rotten bastard. He'd grab his locker and scream, "Earthquake!" as I walked by. And Chris Patterson was a mean kid. And he put a satin elephant on my locker and wrote in my yearbook, "Don't eat too many peanuts over the summer." I mean, just hateful things. I never did anything to them. I was just fat. And when I came back and I wasn't, I was kind of like, you're nice to me now? I'm the same person you humiliated and put down and made fun of and tortured and made cry. And now you want to be my friend? It's like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Butt heads. So anyway, Mike and I started dating, and I met his mom. And his mom's name was Sandy. Sandy, oh my God. Sandy had two boys, Mike and Jeff, and I fell right in the center of it. So it was, age-wise, it went Mike, me, and Jeff. And she was married to Elmer, and oh my God, her house was clean. And she was clean. And she didn't smell bad. And she was beautiful. She was just absolutely beautiful. And she didn't have a daughter, and I really didn't have a mom. And I'll tell you what, it was like a match made in heaven. I spent more time at their house with her and Mike, and we would sit around the kitchen table and play cribbage. And I remember Mike said at first that it was an old person's game, and we just laughed. And it was phenomenal. I just loved her. I loved her to death. And I found out I was pregnant August of 85. And I was trying to eat a cheeseburger. We left campus to go get something to eat, and Hardee's had just opened up, and I got a cheeseburger, and I almost threw up on the first bite, so I threw it out the window. So back then, birth control back then a pregnancy test was a little vial of clear stuff, and you peed in it, and then you poured it in there, and then you put this little ball in there, and you shook it up, and if it turned this color, you were pregnant, and if it didn't, you weren't. I mean, it was a scientific project. We were. And kept it on the down low. I still went to school. And when I was about 6.5, 7 months pregnant, it was obvious. It was very obvious. I had this huge tummy. And I'd gone into journalism, and I loved writing. I just absolutely loved it. And I was good at it. And Miss Eckhart, never did like her. Oh, she was the instructor. And I I was sitting sideways in my desk because I couldn't sit directly on. And she stood in front of the class and she yelled at me and she said I needed to sit in the desk facing forward like everybody else. And I was just embarrassed and I said, I can't. And she said, if I couldn't sit in a desk like every other student, I didn't belong in that class. And I was humiliated, beyond humiliated. And I remember I went downstairs to the principal's office and I gave him my books and I said, I'm done. I'm done. And so I graduated midterm and got my diploma. I couldn't walk across the stage with everybody because, that was you graduated midterm, you gave that right up. But I had my diploma and I moved in with Mike's family. And anyway, it was great. Mike and I were talking, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, I had my diploma. He had his diploma. And he had applied at Maytag. That was a big deal here in town. And hadn't heard back. So he joined the Navy. And a week after he left, Maytag called. It sucked. But anyway. So I'm living with his parents. And Mike leaves to go to not Norfolk, Virginia. He went to Great Lakes. Went to Chicago area for basic training. And I got a job working part-time at Skiff Hospital, which was right across the street from Sharon's house. And I was working in the dietary department. And I liked it. It gave me something to do. And I had my own money. And Sandy worked and Elmer worked and Jeff was in school. So I sat home by myself all day. And so anyway, my sister, Kathy, and her husband, Mike, we both married Mikes, moved into Sharon's house. So they were living with Sharon right across the street from the hospital. And Kathy had found out she was pregnant. Well, she come over and pulled me out of the kitchen. And I'm sitting in the hallway and she tells me that she started spotting. And I'm like, oh no, that's horrible. Here, get down. And she said to me, if I lose my baby, you don't deserve to have yours because I did it the right way. And you didn't. Okay. I didn't say anything. I went back into the kitchen. And Dorothy was this older lady. And tall, loud, just wonderful woman. And she saw me crying back in the corner. And she's like, what on earth is wrong with you? Because I never cried. And I told her what happened. And those old women that worked in that kitchen were like a bunch of hens. And they just formed a circle around me. And Kathy was not allowed over ever again. She'd come to that door. They said, nope, she's busy. Can't come in. So, yeah, that was good. From there, I remember in May, I went into labor. And I called Sharon and I said, I think I'm in labor. And she said, get Sandy up. And I said, well, okay. So I did. Sandy came out and she slept on the bed with me. She just fell asleep, timing my contractions. And then it got to the point where we went to the hospital and they said they were going to keep me. They said I was in active labor. And so I called Sharon again and I said, I'm in labor. I'm at the hospital. Can you please come over? I'm scared. And she says, well, I've got to go to work. She was working then as a cook at the Newton Motor Inn. And she said she had to go to work and to call her when it was over. I was like, okay. So Sandy never left my side. Never left my side. It was phenomenal. It was great. And anyway, long story short, she went in the delivery room with me. She told me it was the best time she'd ever had in the delivery room. And she laughed. And I just remember feeling this bond with her that I've never had before. I knew I could count on her. I knew no matter what, I knew that's what a mom was. A mom was somebody that you could count on. A mom was somebody who's always there, no matter what. And she had all these wonderful sayings like there's good in everybody, and sometimes you just gotta look really hard. But there's good. So anyway, Sharon didn't come over that day. I don't remember when she came over, but I went to the went home from the hospital to Elmer and Sandy's house. And Mike came home, and he was home a couple weeks, and then I stayed with Elmer and Sandy for it was a few more months, and then we moved to Zion, Illinois, lived there, and Mike was in A school, and it was me and Dustin. And I remember I wasn't really trying to lose weight, but I bought these shorts at a garage sale, and I would do sit-ups and jumping jacks because it was a concrete building, and touch my toes and this and that. And I smoked then. I was a bad smoker. Anyway, I wanted to wear those shorts, and so I lost a bunch of weight, and I was able to wear them. And I didn't realize, I knew people treated you differently when you lost weight, as opposed to being heavy. But they do. It's bad. They really, really do. And so I got down to like a junior's 9, because I remember going to Maurice's buying 7-9. And we ended up coming home. Mike had a break from A school, and then he was going to go to Norfolk, Virginia. And we were going to go down there when he found housing for us. And so anyway, I had gone home, and I was living with, of course, Elmer and Sandy, and Mike was there for a while, and my grandmother, Grandma Brain, was sick. And my best friend called me up, and she says, "I'm so sorry about your grandma." And I'm like, "What do you mean? What are you sorry about?" And she says, "Well, she's got cancer." And it was horrific. It was just absolutely horrific. She had bone cancer, and she leaned over in a chair and broke ribs, and she couldn't walk. And I remember seeing her at the nursing home and just crying. And next to her was this little notepad, and she's like, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, what do I want?" And she says, "I'm dying. What do you want?" And I remember just breaking down sobbing, saying, "Grandma, I want you. I don't want your stuff. I want you." And of course, my sister and my brother, they wanted this, they wanted that, they wanted this, they wanted that. And I remember when Grandma died, I knew it. I was in the basement doing laundry over at Sandy and Elmer's, because I was living there, and I just knew it. It was like she came through me and said goodbye. And I just sat there and cried. Sandy came home from work, and she took one look at me. And I remember she gave me a hug. Sharon never hugged me. Even when I was a child, she never held me. Grandma Brain did. Grandma McMaster did. Grandpa McMaster did. And Sandy did. Sharon never did. And I just remember her holding me while I just sobbed. I sobbed and sobbed. And so I don't remember the funeral. I do remember that I don't like doing graveside, so I didn't want to go there. Moved to Norfolk, Virginia shortly after Grandma died. And really didn't have anything to do with my sister or my brother. Lived there for a while, and then Mike was getting ready to go out on a cruise, and so I ended up moving home. Hang on a second.